The L494 Range Rover Sport was announced in March 2013 at the New York Auto Show before the order books opened for customer deliveries later that year. The L494 was the second generation Range Rover Sport and was a watershed moment for the model as it relinquished the body-on-frame design of the previous L320 chassis for a monocoque. The new construction shaved around 180 kilograms or 400 pounds from the weight of the vehicle depending on the trim and specification. It wasn't just the weight saving that livened up the on-road handling of the Sport model though, as active anti-roll bars were fitted, and for those worried about off-road ability being compromised, the Sport had dynamic response suspension. At the time of introduction, many motoring publications tested the Sport off-road, attempting to find weaknesses. However, the terrain response system made up for the lack of old-school off-road chassis. The system was so impressive that many questioned the addition of optional terrain response 2 systems, and owners would go on to report that even without the optional system and 21-inch wheels fitted, they were impressed by the performance of the L494 to continue through tough terrain. The Range Rover Sport received some minor revisions throughout its production, but the overhauled facelift model was released in 2018 and ran until the end of production in 2022. Depending on your home market, up to a total of 7 engines were available throughout the lifespan of the L494 Range Rover Sport, one of which would be offered in a plug-in hybrid form. To some, the L494 Range Rover is the moment the Range Rover Sport name moves into the upper tier of Land Rover products, as it now shared the JLR D7U platform with the, at the time, all-new full-size L405 Range Rover, rather than the body-on-frame of the Land Rover Discovery 3 and 4. It should be noted that the Land Rover Discovery 5 would also be built using the JLR D7U platform, and so if you qualify your Land Rover products by the chassis they use, then all 3 would need to be considered upper tier models. It should be also noted that some previous owners of the L320 Range Rover Sport cherished the old school design of the model and decided not to switch to the newer shape. However, for the most part, the monocoque design has been seen as a successful move by Land Rover. For those that like their Range Rover with a performance edge, the Range Rover Sport introduced the SVR badge that would separate the higher powered Range Rover Sport models from the road-focused performance trim. Over the years, there have been a number of tuning companies, most notably Overfinch, that have added performance to Range Rovers, but the SVR heralded a Land Rover factory product that was geared towards raucous acceleration rather than rocky ascension. Before we go further into our guide, we found multiple online reports of minor issues on the early cars, all of which appear to have had resolutions available. However, the one report from owners that couldn't be resolved was theft. Sadly, despite what anyone may think of Range Rovers, they are clearly a highly desirable vehicle for those that haven't quite established the mindset of paying for things. The problem is that the key and keyless system is relatively easy for criminals to fool and access the vehicle. We should stress that Land Rover is not the only one to suffer from these problems. Most manufacturers from Mazda to Mercedes have similar issues. Some owners use low-tech solutions like a steering wheel lock, while others have acquired metal boxes to act as a Faraday cage around their car keys when not using them. We'll link the type of products we mean in the top comment below so that you can see for yourself the type of things that owners are using. And even if you don't own a Range Rover, these may be a great way of deterring criminals from your car, whether it's a BMW, Lexus, Mercedes, or a humble Ford or Volkswagen. A reminder that our lists are for common issues and are non-exhaustive, and so if we miss something that you believe is a common fault or have experienced a particular issue, please add it in the comments below to help others. And a reminder that while many internet stories push a fear of Range Rover ownership, we would stress that a common fault for Range Rovers is between 1 to 5% of production vehicles. Being aware of the common complaints doesn't mean that all models will suffer from these faults, but checking for them prior to purchase will increase your chances of finding a good example. Similar to the L405 full-size Range Rover we've done a separate buyer's guide for, one of the most common faults for the Sport model is the door lock mechanism. On the L494 the latch is prone to failure and may refuse to lock or indicate that the central locking is active but still allows the door to be opened. As the mechanism and latch is one that is a sealed unit, a single part replacement is needed whether you have either or both issues. Faulty tailgate activation is another common fault, and so when viewing a vehicle, check that the electrical operation to make sure that it sits flush with the body without any uneven panel gap. A reset and recalibration will usually resolve the issue, although if it is caused by a faulty latch, this will need replacing. Earlier vehicles could return a blank screen on the infotainment display. Some owners found that simply stopping and starting the car would bring them back to life. A reset can be performed by holding the power button and volume button simultaneously for 12 seconds. If the problem persists, then it is likely in need of an auto electrician to investigate further. This problem seems to be reported more often on earlier vehicles, up to production year 2015, although some owners on later models have also noticed the problem occur. Keys losing sync with the vehicle have been reported by several owners, although this thankfully appears to be a relatively rare issue, although one you should be aware of. Check sunroof seals are in good condition without any obvious degradation of the rubber. Leaking sunroofs were reported by a number of owners that had issues rectified under warranty, so the majority shouldn't suffer any issues, but is worth inspecting nonetheless. When viewing a potential purchase, make sure to visually inspect the suspension and check the air suspension system functions all the way up and down without issue. The larger L494 Range Rover has a specific issue with suspension shock absorbers, with 4 separate revisions over its production. For the most part, the Sport appears to have avoided this issue, but any knocking shouldn't just be assumed to be a faulty ball joint. Drive the car diagonally over a speed bump to check if any noises are from the struts themselves. Oil leaks can develop around the bottom of the timing chain cover. This can be difficult to see, so we strongly suggest taking a bright inspection torch with you. We'll link a cheap one below that we use whenever we're viewing a vehicle. Sometimes just taking one with you tells you if a car is any good, as the seller will either be keen to have their pride and joy inspected or turn wide-eyed and nervous. Any rattling noise that is not originating from the suspension and sounds like it is coming from the middle of the vehicle is quite possibly a split heat shield. These can sometimes be repaired, but may need replacement. Doing so should remedy any rattling noise. A common complaint is that the passenger airbag warning light remains on. This is likely either a loose connection or damaged wiring beneath the passenger seat. A loose sensor in the seat is another common cause. We were able to find the following service recalls that you should check to see whether they were carried out if you find yourself looking at an effective chassis code. This can be checked with your Land Rover dealer before purchase by using one of our guides as a rough basis of the years affected. We will also put these up at the end of the video as a list in case you'd like to pause and read through them yourself in your own time. Note that where a recall was for less than 300 vehicles, we will now summarise rather than go into further detail. They were for the crankcase pulley retaining bolt, automated emergency braking system not available, clearance of wiring from the steering column, and EGR crossover pipe manufactured outside of specified requirements. There was also a 12-day production of models with a second row seat latch deficiency. These were produced between the 1st of June 2015 and the 12th of June 2015. If you find a model built in this time, check that the recall work has been done, as the rear passenger may not be correctly restrained, increasing the chance of injury. This affects approximately 200 vehicles. Now on to recalls affecting a larger number of vehicles. Early SDV6 models produced up to December 2013 were recalled for a fire hazard due to battery cable and dynamic suspension piping being in close proximity. A software update was needed for a variety of vehicles across several different model years for indicators that were failing to operate. No effective chassis numbers were available, as it is not a particular run that was affected. Plug-in hybrid models produced in 2018 and 2019 had a short recall window, although chassis numbers were not supplied. Approximately 1,000 vehicles needed replacement fuel level sensors as the fuel tank was overreading. Supercharged V6 and V8 models manufactured from the 5th of July 2013 to the 8th of January 2014 were recalled for a brake vacuum hoses that were incorrectly fitted and could be worn down by the auxiliary drive belt, causing loss of braking assistance. Supercharged V8 models produced in 2014 that exhibit a clicking or rattling noise were issued with a technical bulletin. The remedy was to fit new engine mounts. If the problem continued, then a new steering gear was fitted. A software update was required for over 30,000 vehicles produced between March 2012 and May 2015 due to the door unlatching either while stationary or driving. Soft closed doors may appear to shut but then release seconds later. Right-hand drive models produced in February 2015 were recalled for an incorrectly fitted blower motor wire. This was a possible fire hazard, and so it was quickly rectified in production and a recall issued. A February 2017 recall was issued in 2016 and 2017. The front passenger airbag on these vehicles may fail to deploy, as the chemical mix used for the airbag was outside of specifications. Another recall was made in April 2017 for the same issue, but with another 2 runs of chassis codes. Continuing the front passenger safety recalls, there was another recall in May 2017 for models produced in 2016 and 2017. This time the recall was for the front passenger seatbelt failing to function correctly in an accident. A recall was announced in August 2022 for certain models produced between 2021 to 2022. The seatbelt pretensioner in these vehicles has a manufacturing defect. No VINs were supplied, but it is believed a small number of vehicles were recalled. Next up are the power units, and the Range Rover Sport really does offer something for everyone, with a plug-in hybrid on later models, several diesel engines, a twin-charged motor, and supercharged engines that are topped off by the SVR model. We should stress that as we researched for this video, we were looking for all the possible issues that we can find, so that we could inform you accurately on what to look for. But to balance this off, we found several examples with over 200,000 miles on the original motor, and owners that reported extended ownership periods that were no more troublesome than any other car they had owned. So view any Range Rover with the awareness of possible issues, but remember, many owners buy these cars over and over again for a reason. First up are the diesels, and we should note that officially there are several versions of the 3-litre motor. We'll use Land Rover's own claim brochure figures for power and efficiency, but real world or region specific differences may apply. Early on, the TDV6 and SDV6 were offered separately, with the TD model soon dropped. The TDV6 produced 254 brake horsepower, while the SDV6 created 271, 288 and 301 brake horsepower, depending on age. Combined fuel efficiency was nearly identical, with the TDV6 at 38.7 mpg and the SDV6 at 37.7 mpg. Some markets were also offered the hybrid SDV6 with 335 brake horsepower and 44.1 miles per gallon. For the final year of production, the Range Rover Sport was fitted with the inline-6 diesel engine with mild hybrid technology. The engine averages 30.4 miles per gallon and produces 296 brake horsepower. There is a central concern of crankshaft failure with all TDV6 and SDV6 engines due to an issue that has continued from the origins of the Lion V6 2.7 diesel engine fitted to the previous generation Range Rover Sport. The issue is not as bad as it once was, and fewer cases of crank failure have been recorded since the inception of the motor, but they haven't ever fully disappeared. Ask questions about servicing, as a well-serviced example with shorter oil change intervals should be less likely to suffer from this failure. If possible, find a warranty that will cover the failure. If purchasing from a Land Rover dealer, you can usually extend the standard 1-year used warranty. Two other areas to watch out for are faulty oil lever sensors on models up to 2016 and EGR valves becoming blocked and causing a lack of power or inconsistent power delivery. There have also been several owner reports of oil dilution due to the vehicle not reaching high enough exhaust gas temperatures for DPF regeneration completion. There is a mix of owner reports on this issue. Some say driving long distances every now and again keeps the problem at bay. Others have said no matter how they have driven their vehicle, this issue has arisen. We suggest shortening the oil service schedule on any 3-litre diesel model. Next up is the SDV8, creating 334 brake horsepower with an average of 32.5 miles per gallon on the NEDC test cycle and 26.7 miles per gallon on the newer WLTP cycle. This can make the newer versions of the engine appear less efficient on paper, when in fact the test cycle changed during the production life of the L494 Range Rover Sport. It should also be noted that in 2015 the 4.4 litre unit is changed for another 4.4 litre diesel V8 and becomes Euro 6 emissions compliant. If buying a 2015 model, it is worth checking to see whether you're buying a Euro 5 or Euro 6 compliant vehicle if diesel emissions restrictions apply to any cities nearby. Although the 4.4 engine is considered robust and reliable, turbo failure is by far the biggest concern for any SDV8 owner. Look out for any vehicle that has had delayed oil services when shopping for a vehicle, and if you find a model with shortened oil service intervals, take this as a positive buying sign. A secondary turbo drain was added in 2014 onwards models and can be retrofitted to earlier models. Coolant hoses are an improvement on the earlier version of the motor, however replacement with silicone hoses is a good preventative maintenance. The petrol models are an Ingenium 2-litre paired to a plug-in hybrid system, followed by a supercharged V6 that is switched in later models for an inline twin-charged 6-cylinder with mild hybrid, and finally the supercharged V8. Note that the later models followed Land Rover's new badging scheme. This is the same for the diesel models, so if you see a D300 or P400, you're looking at a 3-litre diesel or petrol. P500 and up are for the 5-litre supercharged model, and the P400e is the plug-in hybrid model. Starting with the 2-litre Ingenium petrol engine that also has a 13.1 kWh battery pack for an officially recorded MPG of 87.3. This range is heavily dependent on charging frequency. The battery range is quoted at 25 miles. These models are still quite new, and many are still under their warranty period. The motor itself has had some reported issues with timing chain, but these reports are quite rare. There have also been reports of oil pump failures and repairs under warranty, although again, as the vehicle is still relatively new, there is no way of separating issues that were recalled or faulty manufactured items being resolved and failures that are likely to continue on the used market. The battery packs don't have any known faults at the time of this video's release. The supercharged 3-litre V6 motor, coded AJ126, is actually the AJ133 V8 engine block, with the two rearmost cylinder bores blanked off and a smaller bore size on the remaining 6 cylinders, initially producing 335 brake horsepower before being uprated to 375 brake horsepower. This engine was then discontinued in favour of the Jaguar Land Rover's new inline 6-cylinder mild hybrid motor that featured twin-charge force induction. Due to how new this motor is, most are still under warranty, and so we'll focus on the earlier V6. But we'll note that generally the new inline 6 is considered an all-around smoother from idle to redline thanks to its torque curve. MPG for both the V6 and later inline 6 is quoted at 26 miles per gallon, but note that the testing cycle does change once again to a more stringent WLTP test for the newer motor. On the V6, look out for leaking valve cover gaskets and any coolant leaks from pipe work, particularly along the fitment clamps. Faulty insulator springs were also reported on the earlier iteration of the motor, and a recall was made for the timing chain issue affecting a batch of engines prior to 2016. The 5-litre supercharged engine was offered in a variety of power outputs. Early models had 503 brake horsepower, which changed to 517 brake horsepower in 2017. The SVR model was first offered with 542 brake horsepower before being uprated during the 2018 facelift to 567 brake horsepower. Average fuel economy is officially quoted at 22 miles per gallon. Although these engines have a fairly strong reputation for reliability, servicing and overall care is likely to be key to a purchase. SVR models will almost certainly have been driven more enthusiastically, however, as long as proper maintenance has been kept up, this shouldn't be too much of an issue. Early models suffered from timing chain guide failures, so listen for any chattering or rattling at idle. And although this problem does seem to be less common in newer cars, we would suggest looking out for it on any age 5-litre model. Warm vacuum hoses can also cause poor running, and preventative maintenance of water pumps, as the engine can run hot if the water pump isn't in peak operating condition. On a separate note, gearbox and differential oil changes are suggested as preventative maintenance every 30 to 50,000 miles. Options and specifications on the Sport are vast, so personal preference will dictate a buyer's choice more than a guide from ourselves. So we'll only add that over 20 optional colours are available depending on your home market. This choice may be slimmed down. 12 different wheel designs are optional, in sizes 19 to 22 inch, excluding the SVR model, and 7 interior trim choices are offered, with most picking one of the aluminium or black finishes. There are the rarer Zebrano wood veneer and dark grey oak wood veneer to look out for if you want something a little bit different. If you live in a market with the base S specification, then cloth seats will come as standard, but SE has grained leather and HSE onwards feature different types of perforated leather. We would strongly suggest downloading one of the old brochures for your home market to give more insight into all the combinations, options and trims available. Our picks are split into two, with the budget choice being an early SDV8 model in SE or HSE trim. For our higher budget pick, we'd either go for a later inline 6 petrol engine in HSE specification or above, or a 2016 onwards supercharged V8, again in HSE or above specification. If you're deciding between an L494 Sport or the larger L405 full-size Range Rover, then check out our buyer's guide for the L405 next, and all the best with your car search.